Hello everybody. Um, as I often say when I begin these talks, it's really good to see you. And then I remember that I'm not seeing you at all, which is so sad. But I hope that before very long, well certainly before the end of this term, I'll be able to come into school again and see you face to face. In the meantime, I hope you're all really well and enjoying being back at school and doing all the exciting things that school has in store for the summer term. Now, as some of you know, I have an allotment. It's about 10 minutes walk from my house, so it's quite convenient to get to, and I've had it for a few years. So you would think that I would be pretty, well, if not skilled, at least experienced now in what grows and what doesn't, and when to plant things and when to sow seeds and how to look after them so that I get the best crops. Well, I wish I could say that that was the case, but unfortunately I don't seem to learn very much as I go along. So for example, this year, having raked the soil and got out all the weeds and manured it last autumn, I made the mistake of sowing quite a lot of seeds of different crops last month when it was cold. And if there's one thing that seeds don't like, it's the cold. Perhaps they don't like that almost as much as they don't like being dry. I watered them, and in most cases nothing has happened at all. There's nothing peeping up above the soil. It's very disappointing, but it's my own fault. I should have learned. When you sow seeds, they need to be kept warm. They're like newborn babies, all wrapped up in their blankets and cosy. That's how they like to be. Speaking of which, since I saw you last, my daughter has had a daughter of her own. A new baby, her first one, and it's our fourth grandchild. She's very sweet, but she doesn't know night from day yet, which means she cries a lot during the night and sleeps a lot during the day, the wrong way around. But we hope that she will eventually get through that and sleep well at night and give her parents some rest. What she really likes, though, is being strapped by some sort of swaddling sling to her mum or her dad's chest, where she can just put her head down and go to sleep. Why does she like that? Because it's warm and cosy. That's what we all like, particularly newborn babies and seeds. However, having made the mistake of sowing these seeds in the cold soil earlier, I changed tack for the next lot and decided that I would put them into little pots at home where it's warm. And I want to show you something. Look at this. There. That, my friends, is a healthy new French bean plant. Do you know what French beans are? Well, they're a bit like runner beans, really, long and green, sort of dark green, and instead of being flat like runner beans, they're kind of round. They're really tasty. Anyway, a few days' time, I shall plant out that and all its brothers and sisters into my allotment soil, and because it's got really well established in the pot, it will survive and grow like a newborn baby. It's interesting, isn't it? I wonder whether you've ever thought about the way Jesus tells a lot of stories about plants and farmers and growing things. That's because he was brilliant at using the evidence of what was around him to base his stories on, because that's what his hearers were used to. And one of his stories that I really like, although it's quite a salutary lesson really, was a story he told about a farmer. He told several stories about farmers and they were all really good, but I like this one. He said, there was once a successful farmer. He had a big farm. All his crops grew very well, and each harvest he would take in all sorts of things into his barn, so much so that his barns were groaning at the seams with all the products he'd grown in his fields. One year he had a particularly bumper harvest, and so much so that he hadn't got room in all his barns to put all the stuff. So he thought, what am I going to do? I know, he said. Got it. I'll pull down these old barns and I'll build bigger ones, and I'll stuff everything I've grown into my barns. And do you know what? I think I might retire, and I'm going to live the good life. I'm going to put my feet up, I'm going to lay in lots of drink, and I'm just going to take it easy and enjoy myself. Oh, we'd all like a bit of that, wouldn't we? Particularly those of, those of us who are a bit older and getting near retirement. Well, Jesus said, the problem with this is that God said to this farmer, do you know what? What happens if you die in the night? I mean, it can happen. Anybody can have a heart attack. What happens to all your crops then in your brand new barns? Who's going to get them? You can't take them with you. They won't be of any value or worth to you, will they? Maybe you've got this perspective wrong. Jesus didn't mean that success was something you shouldn't go for. Quite the reverse. I think Jesus liked people to try and be successful. No, the thing that Jesus was trying to say was the attitude of that man was wrong. That man didn't care about other people. He didn't care about what God thought. He was only interested in his own well-being, his own comfort, his own future. He was selfish, entirely self-centered, thought about nothing or nobody else but himself. And Jesus said, be careful about that. Because he said, the way you think about things, your attitudes, they will determine your behaviour. Where your values are, that will decide what you go for. And you may well store up all these wonderful things for yourself, but actually, what about the poor people? What about your family, your friends, relations? What about what God might care about? Though it wasn't success that Jesus was criticising, it was the man's attitude. He was selfish. He didn't care about anybody else at all. So it's worth just thinking a bit about that. When we've got enough to eat, as we have in this country, when we can go to the supermarket and buy just about anything we might fancy, it's worth thinking a couple of things. One is, well, to remember that the earth and everything that grows in it belongs to God. It's his, not ours, to do with whatever we like. We all know, don't we? You don't just have to have watched David Attenborough to know this. We all know that the earth is, well, in a bit of trouble. We are overfishing, for example, taking too many fish out of the sea, so that the stocks of some fish are critically endangered. We know that we're over-farming and we use too many fertilizers, that we have too many cattle and animals which are degrading the land, that we pull up too many trees and forests so that we can grow more food. Lots of things are wrong with the way that we treat the world around us. We think only of ourselves and not about future generations. When my little granddaughter grows up, in 10, 15, 20 years' time, what sort of world will we have then? Will it be a world where climate change has done so much damage that we've got very little soil left to grow things? Will we have killed off all the bees so that there are no pollinators? Make sure that our crops are fertilized? Will we have emptied the oceans of fish and damaged the coral reefs? All these things need thinking about. Our attitudes determine our behaviour, just like the rich farmer who wanted to pull down his barns and build bigger ones. So it's good today, particularly at this time of year when farmers have sown their seeds and are waiting to see what will happen in the harvest later on in the summer and the autumn. It's good to remember that the earth belongs to God. It's his, and all we're doing is looking after it as best we can and hanging on to it and holding it for the next generation. And so we shouldn't be like the farmer who built bigger barns and stuffed all his crops in. He was greedy and thought only of himself. We need just to be satisfied with what we've got, and not always to want more and more and more. Oh, I know some things are so yummy, oh, you really can't say no. But actually, we just need to stop and think, is this good for the world and good for the future? You are going to grow up and be the grown-ups of tomorrow. What sort of world do you want to live in then? Well, I think what it would be good to do now is to say the Lord's Prayer together. I'll let you do that because some of you say it in a slightly different version to others. If you've got a school prayer, I know they have in Kirtlington, then perhaps you could say that then. And I thought perhaps after that, if your teachers can find a version on the internet somewhere, you could sing a lovely song, Who Put the Colours in the Rainbow? I think most of you know that. And it's a lovely song because it reminds us that God created all things and all things ultimately belong to him. We're just looking after them. They're not ours to be greedy with. They're his, and we can be thankful that that's the case. Well, that's all for today, and I hope that I will be able to see you all again in the flesh very soon. Bye-bye.